Yes, now it's on. So before starting, I would like to thank Fabrizio Atanasio, who's an executive manager, professor, and senior consultant, as well as IKEOA Innovation and Transformation Company, and the local co-leader of TBA, Tech Brazil Advocates, representing the state of Santa Catarina in the southern part area of Brazil. And just in order to give you an update, Tech Brazil Advocates was founded in May of last year, and we already have 900 advocates distributed across all the country's leading regions. Can you imagine the challenges of having such a big number of people working with us? And in different areas, like in a country that is 3 times the size of India, and with areas that are very different. The only thing in common that we have is the language. So we all speak Portuguese with distinct accents, but we understand each other very well. We are mapping now in Tech Brazil Advocates, we are mapping the leading players in our tech and innovation ecosystem to share the information with all Brazilians and institutions that want to connect with us in this field. So the information will be available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So this work, this huge work, is in progress, and I think that in June, more or less, we're going to present the first version of our mapping. TBA was born in one of the most tech-addicted countries in the world in terms of smartphones and apps. At the same time, this country needs to invest in tech infrastructure to close the gaps between the different regions. This is why a discussion with India regarding the AI challenges for both countries is so relevant. The AI policy in Brazil currently has 2 main pillars, according to the Brazilian Association of AI. We have the Brazilian Artificial Intelligence Strategy and the regulatory framework, which is under discussion in our National Congress. This project proposed classifying AI systems based on their level of risk. So high-risk systems, such as those handling critical infrastructure, border control, and hiring processes, may be used as long as they comply with regulations. However, Brazil must overcome challenges such as the need of infrastructure investments, talent development, ensuring inclusion, protecting rights to fully harness AI's potential, and ensure its application is fair, ethical, and beneficial for all. I would like to thank Tech India Advocates for helping us better understand your AI landscape and for allowing us to learn how our realities can support each other in developing our countries to improve the quality of life for all. I'm pleased to introduce Annie Capricar, the co-founder of Tech India Advocates, who will co-host this webinar with me. Annie is a Tech India Advocates are champions in New India's tech and on a global stage, a board of trustees at Opera North, and an advisor to the AI-powered think tank Diversity Economics Institute. He's a business leader, tech influencer with a career spanning technology, entrepreneurship, and performing arts. He has built and advised multiple tech businesses that drive impact across UK and India corridor. His career took him into boardrooms and leadership circles where he steered multi-million-dollar portfolios across Mastech Capital, Exploits, and Lease Plan, managing dynamic teams and bringing structure to uncharted business terrain. So if I would talk about Annie, we'll stay half an hour talking about your curriculum. So Annie, the word is yours.
Thank you, Sandra. And I'm going to make my best attempt to speak slow. So, good morning to all of my friends in Brazil, new and old, and welcome to colleagues who are joining from India. My name is Ani Kaprekar. I'm currently based in Manchester, so I don't live in India as well, but I grew up in India. But for last 20 years, I'm living in Manchester. But before I begin a request, as we will be primarily speaking English, and Sandra has requested us to speak slow, so we'll go slow as best possible. But on your Zoom, you have closed captions on. So if you want, you can turn your CC on to your language, that is Portuguese. I promise if we keep on hosting such events, maybe in few years, I will learn Portuguese as well, and maybe we can do a similar language event. So Sandra, thank you very much again. As you know, India is now in top 5 economies in the world. In last 10 years, it has made phenomenal progress on various accounts of technology, innovation, but more so, India prides itself as now the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. India now has about 100 plus unicorns, which have grown despite the pandemic. A country of 1.2 billion people is not without its challenges. So, apart from the progress and growth, there are also various challenges India deals with. Our job as Tech India advocates is to champion New India to the Western world and now to Latin America, thanks to friend like Sandra. So I'm particularly very excited to do this new series of webinars titled Building Bridges Between Brazil and India, and we are starting with AI adoption. Now, artificial intelligence is hot topic. It's taken over the world. Everyone is talking about it. But I would also like to remind everyone that artificial intelligence probably is easier when there is one language for all. Now, India is a country which has 22 official languages, scheduled languages, and hundreds and thousands of local variations and dialects. So, when it comes to India, I think AI has to first learn to speak India before it can serve India. So, today, with some of our expert panelists who are here as my colleagues, we will try to unpack as much as possible of how India as a country, its technology leaders, the SME leaders, academicians, how they are adopting to AI. And maybe we can draw similarities with Brazil. So, once again, let me add a very warm welcome to all of you. Joined today are my colleagues from Tech India Advocates and their distinguished leaders in Indian tech ecosystem. Joining us is Tina Phillip. She is Principal Director at Ecosystem Innovation from Accenture, a recognized leader when it comes to ecosystem building and innovation, and working with a prestigious organization called Accenture. All of you know. And what I will request is whenever they're addressing their questions, they can add a bit of yourself so we can about themselves so we can start fast. Joining also is Ganapati. Ganapati is from Chennai. He leads two companies, Vajra Global in Chennai and Excite Create in UK. Vajra is specialized in marketing technology and AI, and Excite fast tracks AI adoption for smaller companies. Joining also is Jaya Dhindov, who is Executive Director, Sustainable Cities at World Resource Institutes. Just for everyone to know, Jaya is currently probably joining us from airport because her flight was delayed, but she has made sure that she did not want to disappoint us and she has made efforts to join. Thank you, Jaya. Jaya is an expert when it comes to adopting technology for urban design and smart cities. So with all of that, Sandra, over to you to run it. I will come in whenever I want and fill in or, make sense. But it's for your show
Okay.
to run. And once again, thank you for giving us this opportunity.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Annie. I think the first question would be in order to give Jaya the opportunity to talk first because she's on the way to her plane. What are the Indian government policies regarding AI and what challenges are being addressed nowadays? Jaya and Ganapi, if you may.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Ani. I'm very happy to be finally able to join. I'll keep my answer brief. I think the Indian government has, in very recently, in just the last couple of years, started to devise strategies, guidelines, and legislation around AI, which is kind of not new in this ecosystem, but just that we did not have the regulatory backing for this. So in 2018, the National Strategy for Artificial Intelligence was formulated by the NITI Aayog. And the idea was that the strategy was talking about how AI applications in sectors like education, smart cities, transportation can be used, how India can be promoted as a global AI leader, and with its technological expertise. Then came the guidelines. It was about responsible AI for all, and the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology released guidelines to ensure that ethical AI is being developed on principles of ethics, such as transparency, accountability, inclusivity, and that it is responsible in its use. Then came the mission, which is more recent, at the India AI mission. And what this mission is seeking to do is to build a comprehensive ecosystem fostering AI innovation, enhancing sort of data quality, developing indigenous AI capabilities, attracting talent, enabling industry collaboration, looking at education, and also how to encourage startups. Also looking at socially impactful projects and promoting those. And finally, there's the Digital India Act. This is a proposed legislation. So this is the actual sort of statutory law or legislation, which is looking at replacing the existing Information Technology Act of 2000, and it is looking at modernizing digital governance, which definitely includes aspects related to AI regulation. So the challenges I think that are being addressed are with respect to accessibility in terms of different Indian languages. India has many languages, so just making it more accessible. Looking at data protection laws, looking at, like I said earlier, the ethical considerations, so that, especially in a country like India, diverse, that socioeconomic inequities are not further exacerbated, and basically looking at supporting startups and AI education. I'll stop here, Sandra. Thank you.
Hi, Sandra, I think
Sandra,
you're
you are on mute.
speaking.
Ganpati, you want to add something?
Sorry for that. My dog was barking. Ganapati, do you have something
Yeah.
to add to
I will.
this comments?
I'll add. I think, thank you, first of all, thank you for the opportunity. Great to be here. I think Jaya has really structured this very well in terms of the different policies and how the Indian government has created a structured approach. What I will add a little bit is in terms of some of the recent additions to this, in terms of how actions have happened, right? For instance, I think what we have gotten recently is the government created a very large computing facility with about 18,693 GPUs. It is one of the most extensive AI infrastructures globally. Just to give a comparison, this is 9 times the size of the open source AI model that DeepSeek uses, or 2/3 the size of what ChatGPT operates on, right? So this is a large public infrastructure that's been created, which the government is allowing startups, allowing research facilities, allowing the academic institutions to tap into to build on the AI capability, right? I think Annie, Jaya both talked about languages and the availability of data sets. So this is something also the government is working on in terms of creating at least about 1,000 plus open data sets by 2026. Because today there's a lot of fragmented data, poor digitization for especially the language content. I think that is being really looked on and addressed. The third dimension, I think what the government is also working on is in terms of building the talent, right? In India today, we get close to about 1.5 million engineering graduates every year. But currently, we only have about 10,000 of them specialized in AI. There are tremendous numbers of programs, both from public, through organizational infrastructure, through companies, private sector, which is really working on building a large-scale AI talent. The target is to reach at least about 1 million professionals very soon. And this is going to be very critical in terms of making India the AI capital in terms of talent. So that's going to be another important program that the government is working on. The other thing, we also, I think the government also realizes there's a lot of brain drain that happens. So there are also specific programs to retain talent within the country. So there are programs like Prime Minister Research Fellowship that is created that offers very high internships or salaries, stipends for PhD graduates, making sure they're able to continue and work within the country. So all of this kind of works towards the different missions that Jaya talked about in terms of promoting India as an AI capital across the world. I'll take a pause here. Any more
Yes,
questions?
I would like to address Tina. Maybe she can talk about the digital public infrastructure, more details about this. What is based on and how AI contributes to the digital public infrastructure.
Okay, sure. Thank you, Sandra, for having me, and thank you, Ani, Ganpati, and it's a pleasure to be on the same panel as all of you, Jaya, as well. So I will also try and speak slowly. I think that's a challenge that I have as as much as Ani does. So I'm sure that a lot of you would have already heard about the Digital Public Infrastructure, or DPI, as it is known. It is basically a framework that India came up with to facilitate digitization and digitalization, and to deliver certain essential services to all Indians, right, through digital means. So that is what DPI was meant to do. And it has mainly three layers or three foundations. It's also known as the India Stack. So the first layer that India worked on is the identity layer. So we basically created something called Aadhaar, which provided the 1.3 billion Indians with a unique digital identity. And this was done so that we could enable efficient welfare distribution and financial access to the majority of Indians who otherwise would not have had this. So that was the first layer. So today, I think more than 1.3 billion Indians have Aadhaar, or this unique digital identity. So once Aadhaar was done, then came the next layer, which was the payments layer. So it is called the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, which facilitated a cashless economy. And this was done mainly to drive financial inclusion. Again, what we have to remember is in India, everything needs to work at scale. So we have to provide Aadhaar to 1.3 billion Indians. We have to ensure financial inclusion again for the same Indians, which means that the Unified Payments Interface, or UPI, processes more than 10 billion transactions per month currently. And what this helped with is also in providing direct benefit transfer to the financially backward communities within India directly using UPI. So there were no leakages in the system by using a combination of Aadhaar and UPI. So these were the first two layers. I would call it the identity layer and the payments layer. And then came the data exchange layer. So now this is the layer that most companies are working on currently, which is to ensure consent-based data sharing. So this could be between banks, between the new age fintechs. It could be with non-banking financial institutions. Again, the main idea being that India wanted to improve credit access to otherwise, people who are not considered credit worthy. So this is what is known as DPI, or the India Stack, which is the identity layer of Aadhaar, the payments layer, which is UPI, and now the data layer, which is also known as an account aggregator layer, right? So the idea with all of this was to keep it open, interoperable, and scalable. Like I mentioned, this has to cater to 1.3 billion Indians. So it was built in this manner, and it was classified as a digital public good, right? So there were no guardians for the India Stack that way. Everybody could come and build on top of the India Stack. And that's what a lot of the startups did, for example, whom Ani was referring to, because India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And the digital, public infrastructure and the India Stack really help these startups kind of jumpstart certain things. Because earlier, if you wanted to verify a lot of these people, it is difficult because they didn't have a unique ID. Now, should I be offering credit to Mr. X or Mrs. Y? How would I do it? All those challenges were addressed through this India Stack or DPI. So, for example, if I wanted to verify the identity of a person, I could use it. You do it using Aadhaar integration, right? So startups are using the Aadhaar or that identity layer for secure identity verification, for example. And this then gives folks access to financial services, healthcare, and so on and so forth. So that is one way that startups are using DPI. Another is, of course, the proliferation of cashless transactions, right? And that really came because of the UPI, or the Unified Payments interface. You may have heard of large startups, right? Unicorns like PhonePe, Paytm. All of them came into prominence because they were able to do cashless transactions enabled by UPI. So I can go on and give so many more examples, but important thing to remember about DPI is these three layers: the identity, the payments, and the data layer, and how it has been kept open and interoperable at scale, so that startups, enterprises, NGOs, any other type of organizations can all come and build on top of this India Stack and enable access to 1.3 billion Indians. So I'll pause and hand it back to you, Sandra.
Just one question to clarify. How many transactions did you say you were promoting? 10 billion per day or
10
per
billion.
month?
10 billion. I think that was the latest. 10 billion transactions per month.
Per month, okay.
Per
And
month.
what about the security of this DPI?
Yeah,
Because
highly secure again, right? So it is not just transparent and accountable, but it is also done in a consent-based, secure manner. So that is what we have been able to do with DPI. So even though I think in between there were, I would say, news reports about it being non-secure, but we use the same stack, for example, during COVID. CoWIN is another example where we could ensure vaccinations for the majority of Indians. And again, it was done because we already had this digital infrastructure in place.
okay. So very interesting. And I would like to ask Jaya and Tina about the emerging economies are often catching up to AI leaders. Now, how can India and Brazil accelerate adoption without falling into dependency on AI giants from developed nations? So how can we develop things together? helping each other.
Huh?
Now, just one question. Jaya is just informed me she's between airport changing gates. So, Jaya, are you happy to take this question or?
Yeah, I'm here. I can take this question. Can you hear me?
E outros meios
Yes,
de
we can.
comunicação fora. De
Okay.
outros meios de
Can I
comunicação. Hã?
translation?
Sandra, some
É.
participant is unmuted.
Acho que
Jade,
outros
Yes.
meios de
can you please
comunicação.
mute them?
Okay, just
Imprensa e outros
I'm
meios de
going to
Somebody is
mute.
talking.
Yes.
Just hang on.
Oi, Badara.
Somebody named Jade.
Can you hear me now? Sandra,
Yes, we
everyone?
can. Yes, we can.
All right, perfect. So Sandra, your question was that how can India and Brazil
Yes.
creating? Okay, so I think a couple of ways that we can look at accelerating our own sort of AI capabilities, what we can do with it, how we can create domestic innovation, through public-private collaboration and creating open sources of information. So I think the first is, definitely from the standpoint of research, how can we encourage research on AI through university and academia partnerships? And this can happen across India and Brazil. The second is what the AI mission in India is trying to do is first looking at scaling the education programs through their universities and the offerings that they're making for PhD students, for undergraduate students. And the second one that they're trying to do is basically fund AI startups and incubators, which can help discover startups which are working in the domain of AI and creating sort of a local innovation system. So those are two. Amongst others, I think one is how can you train large AI models on local languages and governance needs, and this I think for both India and Brazil is quite important. So India, for example, has initiatives like Bhashini, so for multilingual translation, and Brazil has Porque. So basically, how do you drive sort of linguistics and bring the local languages in? And the other one would be, I think, looking at co-developing AI tools, which both India and Brazil can do together. And I think the last thing that I'll say is around initiatives like funding AI related projects in critical sectors, especially things like smart cities or just cities, urbanization, transport, agriculture, areas which are important to both countries. And also basically looking at how can AI be adopted in public service delivery, and how do you create those kind of demands so that domestic startups and solutions can come up and fill that space. So I think those are areas for individual sort of growth for both Brazil and India, and also for collaboration.
Sandra, you're on mute.
Tina?
Yeah, I think Jay's done
you,
a
Jay.
fantastic job of kind of summarizing everything. I'd just maybe take a step back and think of it from our ideology perspective as well, right? So I think both India and Brazil, we belong to the global south, which could have a very different way of thinking about AI adoption and AI strategy compared with the global west or the global east. For example, the global west, which is mainly the US, it's a very market-driven approach. Whereas in the global east, which is China, it is a much more state or government-centric approach, right? The global south, I think, is somewhere in between. We are both market-driven as well as state-driven, but because of that, maybe we are combining the best of both worlds, right? So when it's state-driven or government-driven, we tend to think more about inclusivity, of making it more society-centric. just like we saw with India and DPI, for example. And when it's market-driven, we also have to think about how enterprises and startups and others are adopting AI and what do they need to actually go up the AI adoption curve, right? So I think the global south kind of has to balance these two aspects versus the market-driven approach in the US and more of a state-driven approach in places like China. So that was one of the things that I was thinking about when it comes to what can the global south do, right? But Jaya touched upon a few points which I think would be very critical. One is building the indigenous AI foundation models. We cannot depend solely and wholly on the LLMs and the foundation models, which have been developed in other countries. So we would all have to have our own versions of doing this. India, for example, perhaps felt that this requires a lot of capital and did not really start on that journey till much later. We tended to focus more on the application layer than on the foundation models itself. But I think after DeepSeek happened, people have woken up and said, well, we cannot say it's very capital intensive anymore, right? And India is known for frugal innovation and as Jugaad, as it's called in India. So we should have had our own DeepSeek in India, right? So building indigenous models, I think that's something which both India and Brazil should definitely think about. And how can we build these models? It is only if we have a very strong AI talent and research ecosystem, right? Whether it is from the universities and academia, or it's from the startups, or it's from the large enterprises. We need to have the right AI talent and research ecosystem, which is what may not be there yet with respect to India, for example. So yes, we need the foundation models, but how do we get there? We need the AI talent and research ecosystem. And another important thing, and I think Ganapati referred to this, which is around the compute infrastructure, right? Again, this is something that we would have to develop, whether it's in India or in Brazil, and not be so highly dependent on cloud service providers and other portions of the compute infrastructure. So like Jaya pointed out, India's India AI mission, for example, is working on this. There are a few other missions as well, like the semiconductor mission and the supercomputing mission. So we have started on that journey, but this is something that we would have to kind of catch up if we have to be solidly there in the Indian, in the AI race. So foundation models, the research and talent ecosystem, and then the compute infrastructure itself. And then underpinning all of this would have to be the AI policy and the data laws that, again, Jaya was referring to, because data localization is, in a way, key to AI independence. AI feeds off large amounts of data, and you may have heard of saying data is the new oil. Everybody needs data to train their foundation models. So how can we look at using the local data sets, enhancing the local data sets to build these AI models as well? So these are some of the things which I think India and Brazil should definitely keep in mind, so that we are not always at the mercy of other ecosystems when it comes to AI. Yeah, back to you, Sandra.
Yes. Ani?
Yes, I just wish to add a very important point here, because I was thinking where Brazil and India are unique as well as in their differences. Both Jaya and Tina have laid fantastic ground. My point is taking AI literacy beyond urban centers. That's also important for a country like India and also for Brazil, because if you want to create diverse data sets which are connected and rooted to the local population, could be multilingual population, then both India and Brazil have to take their AI literacy beyond the major urban centers, or as we say, not just tier 1 cities to tier 2 cities, where not only you get diverse needs, data sets, application, and direct benefit to the society. So one thing that India will have to look at, and I'm sure Brazil too, that taking AI beyond the key tier 1 urban centers to tier 2 urban centers as well. So India, for example, has a program called as Responsible AI for Youth kind of program, which is also targeting not just the tier 1 centers, but tier 2 centers. So that's the only point I wish to highlight, because I'm sure Brazil is, for me, I mean, when I think of Brazil, I'll obviously think of Sao Paulo, but there are so many other cities and centers where AI literacy has to go. Same is the challenge for India, because that's through that diversity, a uniqueness of our countries will shine through. Otherwise, all of us will be adopters of westernized AI data sets as well as applications, and we don't want to do that. I'll stop here.
I would like to address, well, we have the difference of the languages, no? Because Brazilians speak Portuguese and Indians speak how many? 200?
No, 22 main languages and about 1200 variations.
1200 variations. So how to address that, this difference of languages?
Difficulty. Ganpati, do you want to come in here?
I think this is going to be critical because in terms of, I think Jaya talked about Bhashini. I think there's one of the initiatives where India is working on languages and trying to make sure how localized you are able to provide the customer experience, or in this case, it is an experience, right? Every program that they talk about, I think there's one program where in the very early days of ChatGPT, Microsoft was kind of um, looking at in India, where they had created a chatbot that can look at, using the DPI, all of these digital forms. And through voice, when somebody says to fill out the form, it was actually translating the data from the local language into these forms, right? So that is an example that we can talk about. There's another example from the place I come from. There's a state called Tamil Nadu. They are kind of working on a program in the agricultural space. So they picked up a very simple example of how do we support farmers, and they took two main crops, which is paddy and maize, and they created things around how to control pesticides and disease. So through taking a lot of pictures across the state about these crops and to identify them through photographs for easily identified through smartphone, they created a small application. And today, the application receives about 10,000 requests a day, and it is able to help farmers identify the problem and come up with right recommendations, right? So this is directly from experts in agriculture, directly supporting in local language through simple picture-based communication. And I think that is what AI is transforming as well, right? It is creating a lot of ways in which the business can be transformed and the experiences can be transformed. I think that is going to be key to think through. And that is the essence where your question of languages will also have to be addressed.
Yes, I would like to address now the question related to AI education. With the India's AI missions focus on the future skill, how is AI education being integrated at different levels, from universities to tier 2 and 3 cities? So how are you doing this? Is there a special program? Is there something very unique? How are you addressing this challenge?
I think, Sandra, this question was for Jaya, but I think Jaya is just at a flight. So I think.
Okay.
But
I
can
take this last one, Ani.
Okay,
Sandra,
Jaya, such a sweetheart. Thank you so much. Please take it away.
All right, I'll just be quick. So Sandra, I think the first thing is that in March of this year, when the budget announcement was made, so the Indian government has approved a budget more than about $1.25 billion to basically bolster this mission's objectives, right? So reflecting a really strong commitment to advancing AI infrastructure and research. And the ways in which that they're looking to do it is first, like I'd mentioned earlier, the education program. So looking at higher education integration in the curriculum, looking at PhD fellowships, scholars focusing on AI research. Then, from a tier 2 and tier 3 city perspective, they're looking to promote inclusive access to AI education, data, and AI labs, which are being established in these cities. So which are also providing basic AI training and resources. And there's model labs being set up. There's one in Delhi, India Data Lab, that has been set up, and it's serving as a prototype for future labs that need to be taken up across the country. There's also, there's a call for proposals out to build India's foundational AI models, aiming to enhance research and application. And finally, there's support for startups, because 60% of India's startups, about 60%, are located in tier 2 and 3 cities. And the idea is, how do you create an inclusive approach to promote these startups and ensuring that there's sort of nationwide development of these solutions and initiatives. So those are some of the things that are being done. Thank you very much.
Great,
Alex.
great. I think there's someone with the microphone open. We're trying to close, but every time it opens again. Sorry for that.
Yeah,
Well,
it happens, Sandra. Thank you.
yes, I would like to address another question that I think it's very interesting if we can have a couple of examples of successful AI adoption in India. Maybe Ganapati could give us some of these examples and how they have proved their value. For example, can you explain how companies see the ROI on AI investments? Because this is a big challenge here in Brazil, to show entrepreneurs that AI is worthy to invest. So people are very diffident nowadays because of the costs, etc. Can you give us an overview about this specific item?
So I think I will pick one example of a food delivery platform in India. There is a food delivery platform called Swiggy. They have done quite extensive work with AI. And very recently, they had kind of worked on a platform called as Bolt. Bolt is basically, they created a model where you could get food delivery in 10 minutes, right? Now, when they worked through this, they had kind of thought about how you could go from the idea to say that I want to do a 10-minute food delivery, to kind of launching this in about 400 cities. They had done end to end of this concept in less than 40 days. And a lot of this was possible because they had to build the application. The application had to be approved by App Store, Play Store. Then you need to work with restaurants, the operations, work and train the drivers. If you look at the entire concept of how they are trying to build this out, it's mind-boggling how you could achieve that, right? And to talk about that, it was a very big hit because in terms of 8 weeks since the launch, 5% of their orders were coming through Bolt. And they are one of the largest food delivery platforms in India, right? It basically shows how you could start reimagining how you do business in the context of AI, right? In prior AI world, thinking about a concept, developing this and implementing this is, if not 6 months, maybe a year kind of a time frame. Now you are able to reimagine things where you can do things faster. And the time to market is one place that's going to make a huge difference in terms of the return on investment that you could get, right? I can talk about our own business where we do work in the area of marketing. We do work in the area of MarTech. And we have seen tremendous amount of success. So we have built in our own ecosystem about 50 odd agents that operate, that our employees use in terms of being able to do their day-to-day work. And these are built in two different parts, right? I think one is thinking through from straightforward automation. So basically, I take the current process and can I automate specific things, which is efficiency. This efficiency could be, let's say, an ideation process for social media content creation. It could be code generation today, right? I mean, you use tools like Cursor, you're able to generate a lot of code. And we are able to see anywhere between 70 to 80, 85% improvement efficiency here. And that kind of an efficiency pays for itself, right? The other part is, which is more important, is because you have AI, you are able to reimagine your business process. You are able to say, how do I do something that I have not imagined before, right? An example like how I talked about Bolt, something like that is possible today because you are thinking through, you're able to leverage the power of AI to create new ideas and new possibilities. And I think that is where the big opportunities lie. You are able to really look at new ways of delivering customer experience. Because in a world where everything is getting automated, you're getting different kinds of bots, one thing that will still remain true north would be the customer experience. Are we able to really better the customer experience, give people better experiences? And that kind of can drive a lot of your ROI as well, because it creates new opportunities, new markets that doesn't exist. Right? I think that's probably what I would say as a way to think about this.
Anyone? Yeah, Annie?
Sandra, this is more at an industry level, so rather than specific levels. If there is any apprehension or doubt or how to kind of in small and medium enterprises in Brazil, it is not uncommon from India because, and even you see world over, the bigger and larger companies and industries spend a lot of monies to invest into AI. A, because they have the money, and B, they need to. Simple. But when it comes to small and medium enterprises, they understand the need, but they may not have the money to invest. And
Yes.
that is where taking advantage of ready-made frameworks is extremely important, especially for emerging economies like Brazil and India. It is extremely important for small and medium enterprises to invest in some shape or form or AI now, because I mean, we have many industry dialogues. I think roughly I can say that if 1 year, if you're not doing AI, with every 1 year passing, you're 10 years behind the competition. So imagine if you skip AI, adapting to AI for 5 years, you are 50 years behind. So that's the kind of thing, and it may grow exponentially. So if there is any apprehension within small and medium enterprises within Brazil, the faster they adopt AI is better because that's how Indian enterprises are learning. Because now, as soon as, and see, I think Tina or Jaya also mentioned earlier that all of us, I mean, all of us, we had a deep seek movement, right? That quietly China, I mean, this Chinese company launches an AI agent and it creates kind of waves across the world. Now, the question for countries like us and the enterprise setup is whether we want to reinvent the wheel and create something new of our own, or and wait for that much time, or start using ready-made infrastructure and start collaborating between ourselves. I think that is going to be the winning formula for small and medium enterprises in countries like Brazil and India, that you collaborate
That's,
existing framework and
uh,
start running without waiting.
yes,
That makes
this
sense?
is a good idea. Yes, I think so, but we need to enroll several players here in Brazil that are dealing with the small and medium enterprise and maybe do partnerships with Indian Pulse all over.
You're welcome.
Yes, it will be great. Well, we are approaching the end of our meeting, but The last question that I want to pose to you is about the struggle of many startups while scaling the AI solutions. What are the big challenges? If you can you give us an example? Okay, the money is a challenge, the investment is a challenge, but regarding the adoption of AI, what are the big challenges? Are the people inside the company, the leaders? Where did you find the pain?
Ganpati, why don't you start?
So
Ganpati,
I'll
Tina,
take
and
that,
me.
sir. So I think people, you touched upon a brilliant point, right? It needs a significant mindset change, right? In terms of top down and bottom up in the organization. From a top down perspective, I think the leaders need to understand AI. They need to be able to think, how can I use AI in the business? At the same time, also appreciate, I think we didn't talk a lot, I think we touched a little bit about responsible AI in terms of the bias that it has, the kind of inaccuracies that AI brings along. So how do I bring AI into the organization, but at the same time put the right guardrails into perspective, right? Uh, the next level is introducing AI to the different layers of the organization, but at the same time giving them the comfort that this is a change that is need to be done, and it is where by upskilling them they are able to get better opportunities, because there is always this fear of when AI comes, is there a threat to the job, threat to my position, right? And I think that is something that needs to be dealt with head on, talked to with people so they understand about it, because it is, in a lot of ways, AI is changing the rules of the game, right? So Annie talked about, if you don't adopt AI, you're going to be left behind as an organization, right? So every passing year, you're probably left behind 10 years. So this needs to be the conversation that needs to be done with the people. And when they understand it is important for the organization and for every individual to follow this, I think they look at this problem statement very differently. And we have seen significant impact when we have these conversations and are able to bring them around. But it is a journey. It took us anywhere between 4 to 6 months for people to start going from a doubt on AI to contributing, this is how I can use AI, this is a new idea that I can bring on board. So that kind of a co-innovation, running things like hackathons within the organization, that will allow to make people appreciate AI, right? So that's one part of the problem. The other big challenge, in the interest of time, I'll probably stick to two, is data. For you to be able to do AI well, you need to have good amount of data available and good quality data available. And I think that is going to be very important in terms of how your AI model will work and how well it is able to deliver results, right? I think these are two important things that I've seen that organizations need to work on. I'll probably ask Tina to maybe add a few points to this. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Ganpati. But I think you've touched on two of the biggest ones, right? So when as Accenture, also when we talk to multiple stakeholders, large enterprises to startups, basically there are three things that we ask. One is, are you data ready? And that's the point that Ganpati was saying as well. Are you data ready? It's not just the quantity of data, it is the quality of data. You put garbage into your AI model, you're going to get a shit output, excuse my language, but that's what it is, right? So if your data is not good, if it is not aligned, if you don't have a data strategy in place, AI is not going to work for you. So that's the first question we ask, are you data ready? The second one is what, again, Ganpati said, people ready. Are you people ready? So are your people on board? It's not just that they need to be suddenly one day data scientists and AI and ML researchers. Are they business users of AI? Can they think of how to reinvent the processes and businesses using AI? So that's the other portion that we talk about. Are you people ready? And the final is, are you enterprise ready? Now that enterprise term can be changed to, are you, startup ready? Are you enterprise ready? But it's actually about the putting the guardrails in. Responsible AI, explainable AI, security, and all the goodness that needs to come in order to have a secure experience for not just for your employees, but for your clients and downstream as well, right? So these are the three big challenges that we always find. Are you data ready? Are you people ready? Are you enterprise ready? And most of the challenges, I think, would fall into one of these three buckets. But I'm sure Ani can add a fourth one.
Yeah.
Listening to both of you, can I add one quick point
Yeah,
which
yeah.
doesn't get talked about? See, with your data ready, enterprise ready, solutions ready, we also have to be next generation employee ready organizations, because all of us seniors experts who have been in the industry, we can sometimes pass the technology trend saying that this is a fad, this is a fashion, it will not stay. But all of us know AI is not only here to stay, it's going to integrate and penetrate into our lives, which means the next generation, our children, and their children are going to be absolutely AI integrated. And their demands as employees when they join your organizations will be different. If your organization has not adapted to AI, and your employee is more AI savvy than you, then you are not going to get that talent. They are going to go and join somewhere else. So you have to also be generationally and employee ready, because your next generation employees are going to be much more smarter in AI than the ones who are running the companies. That's a big challenge when it comes to attracting challenge. That's, I think, where I'll stop.
No, yes, and I was going to add,
It's
what
a
about
very
the
important
government?
question. Yeah.
Yes, and what about the governance of companies by adopting AI? So the government should address this important tool in order, from the ethical point of view, from
Yes.
a human perspective. So this is a big challenge. And
Yeah.
do you think in India are the boards prepared for that?
I think, well, this is a broader topic. We probably can, have another webinar on this. But
Yeah, for sure.
there's something that I see in India. Sometimes India surprises you in adapting big time industrial changes. It is somehow much. You sometimes think that how do you move 1.3 billion into a policy? But India did that with going for digital currency, with digital, public infrastructure. So India has some unique political, government, socio-economic way to sometimes just ram through the changes and let people adjust. I will give you one example. Tina extensively spoke about the digital public infrastructure. It was a massive change. Imagine each Indian having a unique digital identity, right? Big change, which means henceforth, when you go to a bank, when you apply for driving license, when you apply for passport, you do not submit your documents. You just give your one single ID and many documents are ported. So I was having an open conversation with the person who designed it. He was a former chief architect of Aadhaar, a gentleman called Pramod Verma. We'll get him for some time. And I asked him open question that what was the social impact you were thinking? Okay, because we all think of social impact, right? And his answer was very fascinating. He said, actually, none of us thought anything about social impact, because our target was to get it done first and then let the society adjust. If you keep thinking too much of social impact, then you enter into a lot of ethical conundrums. So sometimes ethics can put brakes on innovation. Ethics can also be accelerator. You carry out the innovation first, and then the societal pressures, government pressures, board pressures sort of balance it through. But if you wait, then you lost years. Does that make sense? That you get it implemented first and let ethical pressure from the society balance it out. And you strip away the excess, but do not wait for implementation. That's the India story, if I may say.
Okay,
Sandra,
thank
I'm
you.
conscious that people have been putting a lot of questions or notes. And since it's in Portuguese, they look beautiful, but I can't understand. Are there questions that three of us can
Yes,
take? I mean,
I
I don't
was
want to disappoint the audience who've been very patiently here, you know.
yes. Oh, I was going to ask you if someone has questions to make. Fabrício, do we have questions?
We still have few minutes. Although it's late in India for Tina and Ganapati, but I can see they'll be happy to support, I think.
Yes.
I think Tina probably had a bit of a time pressure, but leave it to her.
No, I'm okay for another
So
10
are there
minutes
any
or so.
questions,
Sure.
Sandra?
Yeah.
No, they're presenting themselves, but they don't have questions.
Okay.
Just following up, blah, blah, from every part, several cities of the Brazil. So
Thank you.
we don't have questions. I would like to thank you very much for being with us today, the first international webinar that we we did together. And this webinar will be in our YouTube also channel in Tech Brazil Advocates. So if you miss something, you can double watch in the YouTube channel, and then we'll wait for the next webinar with India to talk about business. Okay?
Sure. Thank you, Sandra. And
Thank you very much.
Sandra, I have one request. There are many people who are joined. If you want to turn their camera on, I can take a screenshot and we can splash it on social for those who are ready to, you know, show their smiling
Yes.
faces. Let me at least see our new Brazilian friends, you know.
Vocês
I
podem
can see
ligar
Fabrizio
suas
if anybody
câmeras,
wants
por
to be on
favor.
camera.
Vocês poderiam ligar suas câmeras, por favor, para a gente tirar uma foto, se for possível? Dreife, Sveta, Ricardo, Santiago, professor Hélio, Miriam, Ricardo.
Para mim não está aparecendo a função de abertura de câmera, não sei por quê.
Nem para mim.
Ah,
Pois é, só está ativado o
Ó,
microfone.
I believe there is
estranho.
some restrictions of the setup for not opening.
Okay.
Just a moment. Deixa eu ver se eu consigo resolver aqui o problema. Fabrício, me ajuda aqui, porque realmente Zoom não é minha praia, meu. Impressionante.
You know, Sandra, why I'm keen. There are a lot of conversations which are happening in the Western world about BRICS, okay? And
Yes.
Brazil and India are the strong B and I of BRICS. So I just wanted to make a big social media news about this, that you know,
Yes, for
private
sure.
industry collaboration can lead the way.
And let me check here. Da-da.
It's okay, otherwise we can stop.
I don't know why. They are not allowing
Okay.
they
Oh,
are
because
not
this is a
allowing-
webinar.
Yes, maybe this is the problem because
No problem. For
yes.
everyone,